So a really, really warm welcome to all of you who have been able to join us for this first ever 2022 Voluntary Sector Expo for Wiltshire. We have Wessex Community Action have actually coincided this week-long expo with a small charity week, given that most of the voluntary and community sector is largely small charities. The expo has been put together by Wessex Community Action to showcase the great work that charities and voluntary and community organisations do in delivering frontline services, support and activities and events for our residents in Wiltshire. And the Voluntary Sector Expo is a real opportunity for anyone and everyone to get a flavour of the length and breadth of the sector, which is vast, by the way, in Wiltshire. I think we have something like over 2,500 registered charities and a lot more unregistered, unincorporated, smaller organisations. And they make a massive contribution to civil society and especially to the health and well-being of our residents. So many in the sector, especially those smaller and grassroots organisations, are really the backbone of our communities, and without them, services that many rely on and, dare I say, take for granted would be keenly missed, depleting the very infrastructure of our society itself. So the backbone of our work was never more keenly felt than during the first COVID lockdown of the country. Feels like a long time ago now, but obviously we're still feeling the repercussions of that. And when volunteers and communities groups became really the first responders in that first wave of our lockdown and really supporting up and stepping up and supporting our residents. So we hope this expo will be both informative, educational, and also an opportunity for celebration of the sector. We have 35 organisations contributing over the next 4 days. And as I've already said, many more contributions will be posted on our Wessex Community Action YouTube channel. So I hope you find the expo raises both your understanding and knowledge of the voluntary community sector and the amazing work being done by its staff and volunteers across the county. I also hope that you will feel this is a real celebration and acknowledgement of all the not-for-profit services, activities, events and support provided by a really dedicated, often unseen workforce that is committed to growing and our thriving communities where everyone belongs and no one's left behind. So to kick off the week, you will be hearing first from Wessex Community Action. That will be followed by Open Door Warminster and then Victim Support. So we are the openers for today's session. But before we get going, I'm really pleased to have here for our first Wiltshire Voluntary Sector Expo, both Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Bucknell, who will now formally open the Wiltshire Voluntary Sector Expo today. So over to you, Allison and Ashley.
Thank you, Amber, and good morning, everybody. It's absolutely fantastic to be here with you today. I'm Ashley O'Neill. I'm the Cabinet Member for Communities at Wiltshire Council, and I have here with me Councillor Allison Bucknell, who is Portfolio Holder for Communities and Area Boards. We do have a very short slot this morning, so I'm going to bring Allison in just a second to talk about some of her experiences working within the sector, as Allison has been a Wiltshire councillor for a very long time. But before I do, I just wanted to say, have an absolutely fantastic few days. Enjoy the expo. I hope it's extremely useful. We very much value the work that you do here in Wiltshire, and the sort of voluntary and community sector is absolutely fantastic. So keep up the good work and thank you. And over to you, Alison.
Thank you very much, Ashley. Yes, welcome from me too. So at the heart of every strong community is a whole host of volunteers, whether it be running the Brownies or the Scouts, the WI, the village fair, the PTA, the local coffee mornings, or the local sports club. We have charities embedded in the very fabric of our society, providing in many cases what people consider to be essential services such as dementia and carer support, the Wiltshire Air Ambulance, and our hospices. We have national organisations including Rotary, Roundtable and the Lions. We have young farmers and very many different faith-led groups. The list, as Amber has already said, is endless. Without a strong voluntary sector, our communities would struggle and simply not be the wonderful places we choose to live. Volunteering is good for you, a proven fact. I was brought up to volunteer from a very young age, helping out at older people's parties, the church whist drives and jumble sales, and it's been part of my life ever since. In fact, I think I could be a world record holder in folding raffle tickets. Volunteering gives and takes. It allows the volunteers to be involved with something they are passionate about and provides happiness to the volunteer and to the recipient. But it can also be a worry. We have to be honest with ourselves and enjoy what we do. There are never enough secretaries, fundraisers, committee members and doers. So we need our voluntary organisations to support and appreciate their volunteers, not ask too much and drive them away. At Wiltshire Council, we rely on and support the voluntary sector through commissioning, grants in the area boards and with awareness raising. We have some great organisations supporting the promotion of the voluntary sector in Wiltshire, and I commend Wessex Community Action for putting this week's expo on. I understand it's been a huge amount of work. I wish them well and look forward to seeing some of the recordings of the sessions that I'm not able to make myself this week and which will hopefully go viral. Thank you.
So just to let you know, thank you very much. Allison and Ashley for joining us today. We really appreciate you showing up. Really appreciate your words that you've shared about the sector, and we really hope that you enjoy the rest of today's session. So we're going to kick off now with a presentation from myself from Wessex Community Action. And if I haven't done so already, my name's Amber Skyring and I'm the CEO of Wessex Community Action. Wessex Community Action is actually a often referred to as a local infrastructure organisation, and to others, some of us know us as a Council for Voluntary Services, and our main role really is to support the voluntary and community sector across Wiltshire, and we do that in a number of different ways, and those are the ways that I'm going to talk about today. Our key role is support, advice, guidance, training, but we work under what's called 4 pillars. And these are our 4 pillars which support the core work that we deliver in Wiltshire. So leaders and advocates for the sector, volunteering, partnership and collaboration, and community development work. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about each of those 4 pillars in brief. The first one being around leadership and advocacy. And I think in essence what we do is we're really flying the flag for the voluntary and community sector in Wiltshire and ensuring that they have a voice in influencing and sharing their knowledge, their expertise, their data in a way that helps shape all the work that we do across the sector, but also with other key stakeholders. And there are different ways that we do that. This Voluntary Sector Expo is part of showcasing that work, so really shining a light on the voluntary sector in Wiltshire. But there are a number of other things we do in terms of under our kind of leadership and advocacy. So most recently, we have set up the Voluntary and Community Sector Leadership Alliance with over 40 CEOs coming together to collaborate, to network, to support, to basically mobilise in a way that helps structure the way we work together. Another example of that would be that we have led on work with a number of different organisations during COVID and creating the compassionate communities, leading a volunteer workforce during that time, and also working with lots of organisations, charitable organisations, to support residents to get access to the things they needed during that very difficult time. We work with national charities as part of the Voluntary and Community Sector Emergency Partnership, and that partnership is made up of charities across the country, and it filters right down to the local level. So they work with each Council for Voluntary Service in each county or district in the community. And that's a sharing and networking of information. So information that we feed up into emergencies, as in COVID and more recently with refugees, and back down, they share information back down that we disseminate back out into the community. We also do research work. So we gather annually what we call intel on the sector. So we are just in the middle of our State of the Sector annual review for 2022. And that information is really crucial in telling us where the sector are, what the state of the sector is, and also help shape the work that we do going forward as an organisation. But we always also use that intel to feed in and help shape other thinkers, both regionally and nationally, about what's happening in the sector. So they're just a few examples of some of our leadership and advocacy role that we undertake. Another area of work is developing our partnerships and collaborations. We have a saying that we are stronger together. So we bring the voluntary and community sector together under a number of different banners. And just a few examples of that is that we host the Voluntary and Community Sector Forum. We host the Volunteer Managers Forum, and we support the Children and Families Voluntary Sector Forum. And most recently, we've established the Wiltshire Inclusion Network, looking at equality, diversity and inclusion across Wiltshire, bringing the sector and other partners together under one umbrella so that we can share best practice, knowledge, and collaborate together in a way, again, that makes us stronger by the way that we work. So we don't encourage working in silos. There's a real opportunity that if we work together, we're more likely to have a stronger impact. There are a number of other areas of work that we're working on, including supporting Wiltshire's refugee partnership at the moment. We're working with the Family and Children's Transformation Programme using our Wiltshire Together community platform as early years front door. So that's part of developing a new partnership and collaboration. And most recently, we've been working with the Bath, Swindon and Wiltshire Academy, which is part of the new integrated care system. But at the heart of all that we do, it's community development and practical support for organisations, voluntary and community and charitable organisations in Wiltshire. And we do this in a particular way. We do it in an asset-based community development. That's the model we use. So we focus on what's strong, not what's wrong. It's a strengths-based approach, which means we look at what is good, what we can build on, and how we can help support those organisations to develop. That doesn't mean we're ignoring the things that might be challenging or difficult, but we help them focus on what's strong and build from that as a solid foundation. And we help organisations in many different ways. We help them with their governance structures, registering as a charity, or it might be their constitution or terms of reference. We help support, develop trustees' roles and responsibilities, and we can do that through training, but also having clear guidance and induction packs for trustees available so that nobody has to reinvent the wheel. We have a resource library of policies and procedures that help create the framework in which organisations can adhere to good practice, and also so that when they get into difficulty, they've got clear procedures and policies in place that help guide them through some of those challenges. We offer funding advice and support for application processes, even in some cases reviewing application forms to ensure that they have a second pair of eyes on those. For new groups starting out, it can be really challenging. They're trying to source funding out there, and often they need to open up a bank account, but they can't do that because they have to have various other things in place. So we offer a holding account for new groups. So funders know that they can put their money with an organisation like us, that it will be kept safe, but groups can then still get on with the things that they need to do. We run an annual training programme to help build the capacity and skills of the sector. And that's very much influenced by what's happening out in the world, where we need training and support and guidance, but also working specifically to the needs of organisations who may approach us and ask us for specific help and support. We can help recruit volunteers and staff through our Wiltshire Together platform. And at the heart of all of this, we are sharing information through our newsletter and social medias to ensure that the latest research, legislation, activities and events that are happening are shared widely across the sector. And then at the heart of that too is volunteering, which we've already touched on. And I'm going to say a few more words now about our volunteering role. So volunteering, you know, is really important part of the work of the charitable and voluntary and community sector. And we offer advice, support and training on developing volunteers. We promote volunteering through our Wiltshire Together platform. We help guide around recruitment and retention. And we're also here to help develop the diversity of volunteering. As we know, most people that volunteer are often those that have retired from work. And so we're trying to encourage and diversifying the opportunities for volunteering as we move forward into a new era now, especially after COVID. We have good policies and procedures available for organisations so they don't have to reinvent the wheel, and to help shape and guide how and in what way they can ensure that the volunteering experience is a good experience for volunteers. We host the Volunteer Managers Forum, which is a peer support network that enables all those supporting and developing and recruiting volunteers to come together and share their good practice and their learning with each other. We are working and developing what's called our employee-led volunteering. And an example of that is work that we've done with Dyson, where we have a graduate team who have been training the voluntary sector in social media work. So a real fantastic team of volunteers from Dyson who, by the way, are running, I think in this month, maybe, or next month, some more training for the sector. We also have a programme for trustee training and development for many organisations. You know, they're often unseen volunteers. Most people don't realise that our board of trustees, our management committees are all volunteers helping steer the ship of the work that we do. And of course, we have been working every year to raise the profile of volunteering through the National Volunteer Week. And I hope you saw some of our wonderful posts that we were promoting all of last week. And this is a new programme of work that we have been developing, which is our Wiltshire Together community platform. Whilst Wessex Community Action have hosted and worked with the developers to develop this new platform for the voluntary and community sector, it is very much owned and managed by the voluntary sector itself. And it's free for anyone in the voluntary and community sector, and it's really easy to use. And it's an opportunity for the sector to share information about who they are and what they do, to promote their activities and events, and to post their volunteering opportunities. But it is also very much there for residents in our community to find the support and advice and activities and events that they also may be looking for. And it is a great opportunity and way for others to make connections with groups and charities in Wiltshire. It is used by a number of other non-voluntary sector organisations, and we're really hoping to keep developing this in partnership with many other providers to become the front door to finding activities and services in Wiltshire going forward. So don't take my word for it around the work that we do. We have many groups that have told us the difference that our services make. And these are just a number of quotes that we've had from the different organisations we've been working with. And I think the key essence of that is that we find that often people don't know where to go when they need support and guidance. And Wessex Community Action is really at the heart. Our core service is really to support the other voluntary and community sector and charitable organisations in Wiltshire. That's what we do. That's the main activity that we provide to organisations across the county. Some more quotes here around volunteering. And it's great to see that when people come to us, take our advice, that actually they use that information to ensure and improve the quality of their service. that then they notice the real difference that that can make. So a lovely quote here that, you know, we would not be as good at managing our volunteers if it wasn't for our volunteer policy. They came to us, explored with us what they needed to do, helped shape a really good volunteer policy. And now they have something that they feel really confident in ensuring that volunteers are well supported and guided and managed. So just leave you with this last slide. Again, more quotes about the difference that we can make. And I think at the heart of what we do, and I've said that a lot now, but at the heart of what we do is respond to what is needed. You know, we're guided by the sector letting us know what is required. So we are there to listen, to hear what's required, and then respond to ensure that the sector feel supported, enabled to do the best job that they can do. So thank you very much. That's a very much a whistle stop tour through the work of Wessex Community Action. And now I'm just going to open the floor to any questions that there might be.
So thank you, Amber. Yes, there are a couple of questions from our audience. The first one is, how do people go about joining one of your forums?
So please just pick up the phone or email info@Wessex Community Action. Any organisation can make contact with us and we will register you on any group that you're interested in joining us with.
Thank you. And the next one is, how big is Wessex Community Action and how do you cover the whole of the county?
That's a really good question. So I would say we're a small, medium charity. We have a team of 13 members of staff. Some of those deliver one of our services, which is community transport. And then there's a core staff of 6 in the office. And yes, we deliver across the county. And I have to say technologies enable us to do that much more efficiently. So like many organisations during COVID, we learned new ways of reaching out and connecting. So wherever you are, we can have contact with you, but we also do visits and we are looking to run our forums in different parts of the county going forward. Thank you for the question. It's a good one.
And thank you. The final question for you today, this morning, is about Wiltshire Together, and it's whether, as a national charity, they could use Wiltshire Together if they cover Wiltshire, as well as their coverage includes Wiltshire, but it's also national.
That's absolutely fine, as long as there is a Wiltshire perspective and that the activities and events and things that they're offering are Wiltshire based. That's completely fine, and we'd welcome you joining us.
Well, thank you very much. That's all the questions that I have received from the audience this morning. So thank you.
So I have would like to very much welcome Deborah Gogarty from Open Door Wiltshire, who will be our next presenter this morning. And she will be talking to us about the activities that their service delivers in Warminster. Over to you, Deborah.
Thank you very much, Amber. And apologies, guys, I've slaved over a presentation and I can't get it to work this morning, so you're just going to have to look at me, I'm afraid. So yes, I'm here to talk about Open Door Warminster, not really just to talk about what we've done, but to see if we can ignite ideas for others and also for us to make connections. As you'll see later on, we work very much in partnership and collaboration and working with others. So my name's Debs, and I'm one of the founder members of Open Door. I don't quite remember how I got involved, which is the funny thing. My first memory is sitting around a table in 2020 with one person I knew and 4 complete strangers. And we bounced around some ideas about how we could improve loneliness in Warminster. Now, obviously, loneliness became sort of centre stage during the pandemic, which is the time in which we came together. But it's a well-entrenched social problem, and it's growing. The campaign to end loneliness estimates that in a 10-year period, the number of people feeling adversely affected by loneliness has risen by an incredible 49%. Now, if you're an extrovert with great social connections, you might not see this as a problem. It's sort of like, just get out there and make friends. But if you can't do this, then being lonely can have a real negative impact on your health. It actually can be fatal. I mean, it's amazing to think that, but a study has shown that loneliness can increase the risk of death by 26%. And there are correlations to diseases such as heart disease, cognitive decline, and dementia. So while there's a direct effect of loneliness on an individual, it has a knock-on impact for society as a whole, which is why society and community, and why we decided to step in and do something about it. So the idea that came from that kitchen table discussion was the chat cafe. It's not complex, it's not original, but it's massively therapeutic. We're social animals, we're driven to connect with our family, with our community and the wider society. And so the chat cafe provides people with an opportunity to do that in a safe environment. Now, as it sounds, chat cafe, it's just literally a cafe where people can come in. And we start off by just saying, it's lovely to see you. What can I get you? And how are you today kind of environment. Now, we were really fortunate in getting this going in terms of the facilities. We were offered the use of an existing restaurant, which only operates in the evenings. It's not open during the day. This was really handy during COVID because of all the existing social distancing precautions were in place. But more importantly, or as importantly, I probably should say, guests say that they love the fact that the building is a restaurant and not just a room somewhere. They just look like normal people having a drink with friends. They don't feel labelled as a special group. One person told me a story about how they'd seen a great big sign outside a room saying Alcoholic Anonymous this way, and sort of, that the labels that they didn't want. Now, in terms of volunteers, we gathered a band of volunteers from people that we knew personally, people who we felt had the right mindset to act as what we call chatters, our hosts in the chat cafe. What we wanted them to do was simply to chat, to listen without judging, and if appropriate, to signpost to other resources. So if somebody, for example, was chatting and they said, I really used to like rambling, we could say, oh, well, there is a group in Warminster, or there's a couple of groups. Or, I really love playing backgammon. Well, have you thought about the U3A? Because there are some society groups there. Or I used to draw. Well, there's an art class. So it's just gentle posting onto other things that are available in the community. We received our initial funding from the Wiltshire Community Foundation and also from the Warminster Area Board, and that's what gave us the springboard to get this going. And I must mention as well, Morrison's. They have a community champion scheme, Megan Fear, and they provide us with all of our dry goods. So tea, coffee, biscuits, cakes, etc. are donated through them. So we were really supported by the community in getting this up and running. So we opened in September 2020, in between those sort of two lockdowns. I'm afraid we're not great at keeping records of how many people come through, because people come and go, within the sessions. But during the pandemic, we obviously had the track and trace forms. And so we used those to have a look at the sort of numbers that we were getting in. And we estimated that in the course of about 12 months, we had more than 100 individuals who came through and sat down for a chat. Possibly, most likely more than that, because some people use the QR code that we had at the door, so to scan in to say that they'd come in. People came for a variety of reasons. We had some people who had literally moved to Warminster just as the lockdown had started, and they just didn't know anyone, and they didn't know the area, they didn't know where to go. And so they literally came in and said, you know, just tell me about what's going on. We had people who have mental health differences. That makes it less easy for them to make the social connections that will support them. We have people who have had massive life-changing events and just needed somewhere, a centre they could go to and just sit quietly and just reconnect. And sadly, we have people who are deliberately excluded from their society because they look a little different or they behave a little differently. So we have a real variety of people who come through the doors. 2 years on, we're still going. We have, on average, 15 to 20 people who come in every Thursday morning, which is when the session runs. There have been occasions when it's got a bit sort of dicey. We're getting to sort of 20, 25, and we're running out of spaces. But there's been no let up in the demand for this very simple approach to supporting people. We've got regulars, so some of the people who came to us right in that very first session in September are still coming. It makes that much of a difference to them. We always get new people, and some people disappear. Now, this was an interesting one for the committee, because, you know, when somebody stops coming, it's, well, why have they stopped coming? Is it a good thing or a bad thing? But I received a card from one of the ladies who had disappeared, and unfortunately I shared it in my presentation, but she said in her card, many, many thanks to you all for the support you've given me during a tough time. You've been amazing. Now, when she first arrived, she told me that she'd sat outside for 10 minutes plucking up the courage to come in. And every week as she came, I could see the difference in her. She just seemed more lit up, there was more light coming from her. And towards sort of, you know, half a dozen, 6, 7 weeks in, she almost started acting as a volunteer in a way. I'd see somebody new come to the door and she'd jump up and she'd say, oh, come in, sit down, you know, come. And she was getting involved in other groups. And so I was thinking, well, this is really good. And then she disappeared. I met her in the street one day, I recognised her, and I just said, hi, I haven't seen you for a while. And she apologised, that was the first thing. She said, oh, I'm so sorry, I haven't been, but I've joined a few groups, she said, things that I used to do before this life-changing event had happened to her. And so I'm just so busy, but I will pop in when I can. And I remember thinking, well, surely that's success, isn't it? We've opened the door, literally, to these opportunities, and this lady's taken them and she's moved on, and that's fantastic. This Thursday, actually, one of the guests, as she was leaving, she turned to me and she said, thank you so much for what you do. She said, you have literally been a lifesaver. Now, given what I was saying at the beginning of the presentation about how loneliness can have a massive effect on your health and your mental well-being, maybe she was being literal. I don't know, but it was wonderful to get those thanks. It just shows how something like a simple intervention like chatting can make a difference. So, talking to our guests about loneliness, it became clear that there were a couple of threads coming through. People who were experiencing loneliness for specific reasons where they weren't getting any direct support. And those were cancer and grief. So people were coming to a social environment because they felt lonely because of the cancer diagnosis or because of a bereavement. And it might be a bereavement of a loved one, but it can actually be just a massive change in their life. Maybe they've been made redundant or something like that. And so our group, Open Door, decided to extend the principle of the Chat Cafe and specialise in supporting people with, first off, cancer, and secondly with grief. So the Chat Cafe group went live in January of this year. It's the same principle. It's a drop-in, you know, just come in and have a cup of tea. You don't need to book or anything like that. but a very different cohort of volunteers. These volunteers have lived experience of cancer, and so they can authentically say, I understand, you know, I appreciate what you're going through, and can also say, have you thought about X, or have you considered Y when looking to signpost, because they will have been through similar sorts of things. Now, we were supported in setting this up massively by Macmillan, who also acts as a critical friend, to make sure that the advice that our volunteers are giving is current and is accurate and is useful. We're just in the process of getting the bereavement group set up. We're hoping to go live later in the year, maybe sort of August, September time. We're just training our volunteers with the support of Dorothy House Hospice. Again, it's going to be a different vibe. It's the same principle, different vibe. Here, it's less about signposting or suggesting how people can move on, because grief is a very personal journey. And it's okay to not be okay. So it's not about cheering people up or chivvying them along. It's simply to acknowledge their pain, to listen to them, to be kind, to be patient, and to be present. And we already have volunteers signed up and willing to do this. And so we've just gone through some training to help them with that process. The trainer from Dorothy House, Linda, lovely lady called Linda, she came up with a beautiful analogy in terms of how the volunteers would work with these people, which is, think of those people coming in as your partners in a dance, and they're leading. You don't quite know what the next step is going to be, because one of the things our volunteers said was, well, what do I say? What do I do? You don't know. Let that person lead and you follow, and then will, you know, you can support them in that way. So so there we are. That's the three groups, our chat cafe groups that we're setting up. I just wanted to say briefly, you know, we've been supported by the old fire station restaurant in Warminster, who's given us use of the facilities, Macmillan, who've helped provide funding for the side-by-side chat cafe for the cancer support group, Dorothy House, who've helped us with our training and acting as a critical friend with our bereavement group. And also, because Dorothy House are setting up a network of bereavement health points, we've become part of that. So we've got a virtual network of other groups who are doing similar things. So our volunteers aren't completely on their own. They can tap into those experiences as well and get a much broader perspective on things. As I said, Wiltshire Community Foundation have supported us with funding, as have Warminster Area Board, and of course Morrison's with their wonderful tea, coffee and supplies. So finally, take a breath. The future, open door. Well, as I said to you at the beginning, we started off sitting around a kitchen table and we came up with the idea of a chat cafe. There were a few other things on that kitchen table that we haven't quite got round to, but are still there. So we're thinking about maybe a group to help women going through the menopause, and that is something very close to my heart. Digital inclusion. Many of our social group chat cafe guests say that they just don't understand the digital world. They don't know how to access it. They might have a flash phone, they might have an iPad, but they don't know how to get in. So that's something that we're considering. Being a garrison town, military veterans is something else which is close to our heart. So we're thinking about opportunities there, and possibly a community garden. So there's plenty to keep us focused. But the one thing I would say that our North Star is not about building everything from scratch ourselves. And Amber mentioned it earlier, asset-based community development is really important for us. So we're looking at what the community already has in place and what we can build on. And so if there's anything that we've said here that you think, well, I'm interested in that, or our group is thinking of doing that, please get in contact with us. We'd be more than delighted to partner with you to get a few more of these ideas off the ground. I hope that's given you an idea of what we're doing. Sorry about the presentation, which probably would have added a little bit of colour. But yeah, if there are any questions, I'm happy to have a go answering them.
Deborah, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for that presentation, and just inspiring, actually, what a group of people coming together can do to transform lives on the ground in communities, and also to hear all the networks that you've created, and also the opportunities to grow new opportunities for people as well. So some of the new things that you're considering now. Really wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. I know there are a number of questions in the chat, so I'm just going to let Anita come in and ask those of you.
Thank you very much. Apologies, they seem to be streaming outside, so if you can hear some noise outside, then hopefully it won't put you off answering the questions or me asking them. The first one is quite simply, how many volunteers do you currently have supporting you?
We have 16 at the moment, and we've just recently had an application. Well, not an application, just we've had an interest from a new guy, which is, I'm saying new guy deliberately because I know sometimes how challenging it is to get men to come and join volunteering groups, but we're really fortunate that we actually have 4 men now in our group of 16, so we're doing quite well.
Thank you. And what about the age groups of people coming to Open Doors? Is it for all age groups, or do you see that it's a particular demographic?
We are getting all age groups. I mean, because it's open 10 till 12, people who are working, it's going to be more of a challenge. So it does tend to be people who are retired, but we have some younger people who are not working or working part-time. I would say probably the older people at the moment, sort of, 50s, 60s onwards, but we do have some young men who come as well, who really enjoy it, stay for the whole session, actually.
Excellent, thank you very much. And then the last question I have for the moment, so if anybody else would like to ask Debs a question, then please put it in the Q&A box now. The last one I have at the moment is, as the project progresses, do you think the brokering role you do is increasing?
Brokering, what does that mean?
So when we talk about brokering, we talk about matching people to services or volunteers to roles, so it's about making that connection between people and an activity. So it could be the signposting role that you're doing.
No, I still don't understand the question. I'm so sorry.
I wonder if the person asking that could ask it in a slightly different way. Brokering is about matching. It's about putting people in touch with one another or with an activity. So signposting might be another thing. So you're talking about how one of the things that you do is let people know about other activities that are going on within. So that could be the sort of your brokering role or your signposting role. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yes. One of the challenges is knowing what's going on in the community so that you can signpost people to things that are current. And it's something that we work with other elements of the community to join up together. So, for example, the local Health, Wellbeing and Social Care Forum, which has representatives from all sorts of groups come together, and we tap into that to make sure that we do understand what's going on, whether it's at a very high level, hospitals, GP surgeries, etc., or just local community work. So the nirvana would be some sort of Bible which is completely up to date, or a directory of up to date things that we could pass people on to. But yes, we would. Yeah, sorry, that's the only thing I can say really, is that we try to keep up to date with everything and pass people on to things that are appropriate and current.
Thank you very much. I might be as bold to say, or maybe have a look at Wiltshire Together, because you can do postcode searches and area searches. So that might be another source for information about stuff that's going on and activities within the local area. But thank you, Debs. Thanks for those for answering those questions.
Thank you.
So thank you, Deborah. And I'm going to move us on and introduce our next speaker. So I'd really like to welcome now Julie Boyle from Victim Support, who's going to share with us information about victim support and all the good work that they do. So over to you, Julie.
Good morning, everybody. It's an amazing opportunity just to come along and talk to you all a little bit about the support that we offer to victims of crime across Wiltshire and Swindon. So if we just move along a little bit about who we are, we're a national charity offering support to all victims of crime. We're funded through the Police and Crime Commissioners across different areas. In Wiltshire and Swindon, we're commissioned for what's classed as a multi-crime service. So we offer support to victims of any crime type, which could be fraud, theft, assault, and antisocial behaviour and hate crime, and all of those other crimes as well. We don't support victims of domestic abuse or sexual violence directly, but what we are able to do is offer signposting and support those victims to be referred across to the agencies that are able to support them. One of the things that we find is really important to tell people is that we're independent, so our services are free. Although we're commissioned through the police and crime commissioners, we're not actually part of them, so people can come to us whether or not they've reported a crime or not. Sometimes it's really important for people to feel safe to come to a service without the fear that they'll be made to report the crime, or because that's not right for everybody. So we'll support people with the choice that they make around that. And if somebody did come to us and they felt that they would like that crime to be reported to the police, we will of course support them to do that, to help that transition to report it. It's a confidential service, so whatever is shared with us is not passed on. There are the usual exceptions around safeguarding, and if we feel somebody is at risk of harm, then we would of course make sure that we pass that on to the right people. And then what we do, we provide a whole range of different help, and it's very dependent on what the individual needs. So we'll look at that person's sort of needs and develop a support plan that's bespoke to that individual. And it can include things like advocacy. So often it can be around liaison with different agencies and being that point of contact where all of the information comes together, so that that person isn't trying to contact and get in touch with lots of different people, because that can be quite challenging when you're dealing with the impact of the crime. In terms of practical help, that often will be through security items. So we can offer a range of different things that can help people to feel safer when they've been a victim of crime. So that can include things like personal security alarms. It can be decoy cameras, sensors, door and window locks, and we have a range of other items. So we'll look at what that person might need that will help them just feel a little bit safer and a bit more secure, and we can arrange to have those sent to the individual. We offer emotional support just by sort of supporting that person and acknowledging that how they feel is entirely appropriate for what's happened, and supporting them through the feelings around what's happened, and being able to start to find coping techniques for how they feel about what's happened, and being able to move on from that in a way that's sort of helpful to them. We offer a range of information, and we've got a range of toolkits that we can offer people to support them around things like sleep hygiene, coping with crime, anger, dealing with the anger that you can feel if you've been a victim of crime. And we do a lot of signposting and onward referrals, because we often find that if you've been a victim of crime, there are other factors at play, and that actually sometimes what people need is that holistic approach to the support. So we might be able to offer support around the crime, but they might need support from other services for different things as well. And for us, it's about bringing in other agencies that can really help with those other areas as well. Our support, as I've said before, it's tailored to the individual. So we know that not everybody will need the same types of support. We also know that for some people, they might come in for a little period of support, after which they'll move away, but something might trigger these feelings again in future, and people can come back into us for support again if and when they need it. We know as well for some people, they might not get in touch with us when the crime has happened, but it may be sometime down the line, it could be months or years down the line, where they might feel they need support for what's happened. So we will support people whether the crime is historic or has happened recently. Our support is provided by a range of staff and volunteers, and we're very fortunate to have a good network of volunteers to help support the work that we do. Just looking at how we support people, as we've talked about, it can be anybody that's affected by crime. We do work directly with adults who have been affected by crime. By extension, we're able to support the family, and we have a range of items that we can provide for younger people. So that might be journals to help people look at the emotions and feelings of the younger people who've been impacted by crime. We have things like worry monsters and children's personal alarms. So the things that can be really helpful for younger people. We've got books that look at being impacted by crime and emotions to help the adults begin to sort of unpick and talk about that with the young person as well. And we've talked about it not having had to have been reported. We will take referrals from a range of different places. We'll take self-referrals through our web form, or people can contact us by phone to talk to us about what's happened. And we'll have agency referrals. One of the key areas where our referrals come from is through a team called Horizon. Now, they sit within the police force, and they will identify vulnerable victims of crime. And they will talk to each of those people and look at what support they might need. And following that, they'll then refer them on to the relevant agency. So a number of our referrals will come through that team. I guess for us, one of the important things about having the opportunity to talk at these events is that there are a number of people who wouldn't be identified as vulnerable, a number of people who wouldn't have reported a crime, and those are the people that we're really trying to reach to be able to offer that support and to be available for people. So we know that not everybody will have an awareness of what we do or how to access our service. So it's really important for us to be able to get that message out to people, that they can come directly to us or be supported via another agency to make contact. Once a person has made contact with us, we will talk to them about what their situation is, talk a little bit around the crime and the impact that's had on them. We'll develop a needs assessment, which will look at any immediate things that need to be considered. And we'll develop a risk assessment to look at whether there are any other factors to look at. They'll be allocated to a caseworker who will then make arrangements for ongoing support of that individual. The support that we offer isn't time limited, so whilst the crime remains the key factor for us, we can continue with that support. So what it means is that a person's able to develop a rapport with the caseworker and they're not feeling rushed to move through the support. What can happen is that as we're offering the support, it can become apparent that there are other issues and other factors that need support, in which case we'll look at onward referrals and signposting just to make sure that the right people are there offering the support at the right time for people. This is just really a slide that gives some examples of the things that we offer to people. So we've got some examples of the security items and the toolkits that we offer. And we also are able to offer vouchers to people. So if people are struggling temporarily to enable them to put other things in place, we're able to offer supermarket vouchers as an interim measure for people. We are able to offer interpreters. So if we have a victim where English isn't their first or preferred language, we are able to seek the right translators to be able to offer that support. We have a whole range of volunteers from different backgrounds, all the way through from students to people who have retired, and that really creates a great network of volunteers to support people. We also know that for some people it can be really difficult to meet and talk with us. So if they have support from other agencies, their support workers from that agency are able to help them to attend appointments with us as well. It's really about being able to get the right support in place in a way that's comfortable for the person. This date is a little bit out of date now, but nationally we support significant numbers of victims of crime. During the pandemic, our support changed in line probably with lots of other agencies, and our support was predominantly by phone and email. Since we've sort of come out the other end of that, we have adopted a blended approach to the support that we offer. So we'll work with the individual about what is best for them, whether it's in person or whether actually phone and email support is a preference for people. For some people, it's much easier to take half an hour out for a phone call than it is to travel and meet in person. So we're able to just adapt the support to whatever's appropriate for that person. I had a quick look at our data for the previous year, and we offered support to just under 1,000 people during the year. What we have noticed is year on year an increase in the number of people who take up support with our service. Which is brilliant, because I think that reflects that we're able to offer support to people in a way that they can access. At the end of support, we'll seek feedback from people who've been with the service. So here there's just a couple of quotes from people who have accessed our service previously. The victim's code just goes through rights that a victim has for various levels of support. One of the things that we do is make sure that victims are made aware of what their rights are under the code and support them to exert those rights where needed. That's the end of the presentation itself, but I wanted to talk just a little bit, if I could, for a minute around the volunteers that we have with us. We have casework volunteers who directly support victims of crime, and they're essential to the work that we do. So one of the things that we always look for as well is anybody who's interested in volunteering and has some time to share. We'd be very welcome and open for people making contact with us around that, but we also have community engagement volunteers, and one of the things that we find really important is helping us to talk to other people about the work that we do and what we offer. It's really important that people know where we are. how to access us, and how, you know, just making that offer available to people. So that's sort of everything in terms of what we offer. It very much, like Amber said at the start, a whistle-stop tour of what we do. We have a number of staff who can offer presentations to agencies as well. So we're very open if anybody would like us to come along and talk to you a bit more in detail about what we offer. We're very happy to do that.
Thank you so much. That was a really comprehensive overview of victim support. And I actually, despite the fact that Wiltshire is one of our safest counties, still the figures I find quite shocking. And without services like you being there and the volunteers that are trained to support those victims, where would we be? It goes back to my initial introduction. You know, often you are the unsung hero supporting many behind the scenes and often unknown. Often we think that services are provided by statutory agencies when such a huge number of valuable services like yours and Open Doors are provided by, you know, charitable organisations, grassroots organisations on the ground. So amazing amount of work. So I'm going to hand over to Anita, who's going to just fill some of the questions for you, Julie.
Lovely.
Thank you, Julie. Well, picking up on your last point about the volunteers, there's a question asking what sort of training and support you offer your volunteers.
Yeah, of course. So we know that this can be a really challenging role. So all of our staff and volunteers undertake the same training, which is a multi-crime training delivered by our National Learning and Development Team. And that looks at different types of crime, how that can impact on people, and how we deliver support to individuals. And it looks at safeguarding, and it looks at the different elements that make up a support package for somebody. And alongside that, we have a suite of e-learning modules. I think there isn't an agency that doesn't have a package of e-learning for people. And that looks at some of the key the mandatory training around data protection, equality and diversity, and alongside all of that, we offer access to additional training that might be of interest to an individual if they're looking at a particular area of support for somebody. So we have additional training around hate crime, we have additional training around supporting victims of sexual or domestic violence and children and young people. So alongside that core training, we have a whole host of other training that will give people that underpinning knowledge and that confidence to be able to support people.
So again, just following on, what do you think the skills are that those volunteers can develop through volunteering with you?
I think a lot of it's around that interpersonal skills and being able to support somebody who's going through a really difficult time, to be able to have that conversation and build a rapport with somebody is a real skill. So being able to sit down and talk to somebody and get them to be able to open up and talk to you about what's happening and what support's needed, but also that ability to liaise with other agencies and working in an advocacy capacity. So that ability to adapt our approach depending on the setting is a real skill as well.
Thank you. And then just, I think you covered this in one of your slides about whether your service is face-to-face or via phone support. I seem to remember there was a slide with lots of different ways you connect with people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the lockdown really sort of helped us to understand more about how we can support people in a format that works for them. So for some people, it's absolutely right that we meet face-to-face with them, and that's their preference. And we can do that either in their home or in a community setting, depending on any risk factors. But for some people, actually being able to access support remotely means that they're able to do that at a time that's convenient for them, and they don't have the additional level of travel. But we also have an online system where people can go through self-directed support, so we can provide people with access to a platform called My Support Space, and they're able to log on there and they're able to look at what modules of support might be appropriate for them. And we also have access to an online CBT session, a suite of sessions through Silver Cloud. So it just provides people with a range of different access for support.
Brilliant, thank you for explaining that. And then the last one finally is the audience member is just wondering if there is a reason you're not funded to support domestic violence or sexual assault.
Yes, absolutely. So those services are provided by other agencies. So there is support available across Wiltshire and Swindon. So Splits will provide support to victims of domestic abuse and sexual violence, and Women's Aid in Swindon will support victims of sexual violence in that area. And Splash offers support to children and young people who've been impacted by crime.
Excellent, thank you very much, Julie. That's all the questions from our audience, and thank you, audience, for posting some really interesting and questions this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julie, and thank you very much, Deborah, as well, for showcasing your organisation's Peace de la Resistance, fantastic work that you're doing in the community. I do have to apologise for any background noise. I don't know if it's coming through, but if it is, I do apologise for that. So just to say thank you to Councillor Bucknell and Councillor O'Neill for opening today's first session. And for those that have presented, Julie and Deborah, really appreciated you showing up today. Just to let you know that we will be back at 3 with further presentations, and the programme is available on Wessex Community Action's website, so visit the Expo page there. The invite to join throughout the week is the same link for the whole week, so it can be found again on wessexcommunityaction.org.uk. And just a reminder that all recordings and additional presentations will be available via our YouTube channel, and that will also be linked to our website going forward. So once again, thank you for joining us for this first session of the Wiltshire Volunteer Expo, and we look forward to the rest of the presentations going forward for the rest of the week. All the very best. Take care.